Welcome to the Pixel Scouters podcast, where we speak with gaming content creators, esports enthusiasts, and industry experts to give you a behind-the-scenes look at the gaming industry, so that you can learn to build and engage with your own community, produce top-tier gaming content, and carve out a career in the gaming industry.
Welcome back to another episode of Pixel Scouters. I'm your host, Pat O'Reilly, alongside my co-host, Rob Green. How you doing today, Rob?
I'm doing well, Pat. Doing well. I'm super excited for today's show.
We have with us today very special guest, Trent from Esports Observer. How's it going, Trent?
I'm awesome. Thanks you guys for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, you are awesome. He's a great guy. We've already had fun chatting with him in the pre-show. Very excited for this.
So, for anybody who doesn't know, Trent, what is your official title with the Esports Observer?
So I'm a senior writer with the Esports Observer. I've been writing for TEO since 2018. Our main focus is
TEO.
On the... Yes.
The slang already coming
yes. The acronym, and that's for true fans, because a lot of people abbreviate it ESO, and it's TEO, because we're the Esports Observer. It's like the University of Chapel Hill.
Right.
Because ESO is Elder Scrolls Online.
That's
exactly.
True, yeah.
It's important to not mix the two. We don't have any dragons for you to slay. We can tell you about sponsorships in the LCS.
Sure are you of that, though?
I've only been to the Berlin office once, so they might have not been there that time. I can't, as a journalist, I have to be not stating facts that I haven't confirmed entirely.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, okay, so you've done a good job describing senior writer for TEO, as it will henceforth be known. But what is the Esports Observer?
Yeah, so our focus is the business side of esports. So we cover sponsorships, investments, acquisitions, everything that's happening about how people make or move money in esports. So while a lot of other websites will cover tournament results and patch notes and metas and those sorts of things, our focus is entirely, okay, but then how do people make money?
So I can see Rob's starting to drool. His neurons are firing. He's like, business. I love this.
Exactly. Haha, business. All right. So basically, if you are either an esports enthusiast, not necessarily a gamer, but you may be interested in the industry up and coming, you would turn to the Esports Observer. Or who else might go to the Esports Observer to understand what's going on in the space? Who are your key demographics?
So our focus as a business journal is on, people that need to know about the business landscape of esports. There's a lot of people, because esports is so new and there's so many jobs to fill in esports that, nobody's been 20 years in esports sponsorship sales because there hasn't been 20 years of esports to sell sponsorships in. So you're going to hire somebody that, sold sponsorships for, the WWE, and they need to know what the heck is going on in esports, so they might come to the Esports Observer to learn about that. But I think it's also really important from a, just fan perspective to get a sense of the viability of different esports, the scale of different esports. I think one thing that a lot of gamers, and especially competitive gamers, fall into the trap of is narrowing their focus to the game that they play and not understanding the true landscape of esports or of gaming in general. And there's so much you can learn about, what your game does well and does poorly, where your game sits in the landscape, how active your game is compared to other games, by understanding the business landscape, how many sponsorships are going on in League of Legends versus Counter-Strike versus Apex Legends, and those sorts of things. And I think it's really valuable to have that perspective because it informs a lot of the conversations that you're going to have online about, how dead your game is. People still say that League of Legends is a dead game, and
dude,
it had the best viewership last year it's ever had. So paying attention to those sorts of things, I think, makes you a better esports fan regardless of what game you like to watch or play.
So you're going to love this. We talked to one of our previous episodes. We talked to a Rainbow Six Siege content creator named Austin, AUST1N. And he told us that he got started in content creation with The Last of Us Online. And when you're talking about dead games, like, did you even know that The Last of Us had an online... the first Last of Us had an online component. Did you know?
You know, that's the fun about going on podcasts. You share information and then you also learn something. So today I learned that there was online functionality for The Last of Us.
Totally, man. Yeah, it's absolutely whack. But so what I can't believe that. So what I'm hearing though is, first of all, being a senior writer means you're approaching the industry with a journalistic viewpoint perspective. So you're answering the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and the
all
how.
All those W's.
Right? You are answering all of those.
And the H.
And the H, yeah. All of those questions, that's your primary objective with any article that you publish. But then the overarching perspective is covering the entire landscape. And I think you brought up a really great point, which is how new esports is as an industry. And I want to kind of like highlight that because it's not just esports as an industry, it's gaming as an industry. Like, gaming as an industry is just an infant compared to music, movies, and television. And from what I understand, gaming is larger than movies and music combined financially globally.
Whoa, that's news to me. That's incredible.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember there being a market report that gaming is by far the biggest entertainment category at this point, especially when you factor in mobile gaming. You know, just punch everything else in the face because everybody spends on mobile games.
And it kind of reminds me of, like, you know, when people talk about like the history of the world or whatever, and there's this timeline, and it's like the Big Bang, and then like the world, and then like you are right there, right.
Yep.
So, and esports is that too. It's like, you know, probably music, and then like movies and television, and then, you know, video gaming, and then esports. You know, just this tiny little thing. And so if you had to describe...
Actually, most of that little chart would be filled with, like, books, right?
True. Literature, yeah. Yeah.
All books. And then, like...
Which is this, you know, yeah, it's a great point, Pat. And, like, what an interesting little time loop, because that's the medium that you end up turning this stuff out in. Does Esports Observer do any video or podcast content?
A little bit here and there. We're also partnered the Sports Business Journal, which does a lot more of that sort of content and conferences and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of different content to consume, and we're continuing to grow and evolve constantly. But our main focus is the articles that go on the website.
The Pixel Scouters podcast is powered by FanFit Gaming. FanFit Gaming makes gifts gamers love. Whether you're a casual gamer or an esports competitor, FanFit Gaming has an incredible selection of the coolest and most unique gifts for gamers that will make your jaw drop. Head over to fanfitgaming.com and use code PixelScouters for 10% off your first order. So if you had to like talk about the esports, you know, ecosystem to, let's say, a budding, up-and-coming teenager or an aspiring to learn, you know, Gen Xer, how would you describe it? Is it just competitive gamers? Does it start and end at playing video games to win prizes? Or what else is involved in the ecosystem? And I know that's a loaded question, which is why I'm asking it.
And make sure you throw some like Gen Z slang in there too for them, right?
Yeah.
I definitely won't try to do that because that will break badly for everyone.
We don't want Trent to get canceled.
But no, it is a very complicated question that the answer, you know, you ask me again in 6 months, I'll have a different answer because it changes. You know, it's something that we have to talk about a lot when Ninja streamed with Drake in Fortnite. It broke the internet in half, but it wasn't esports. But it affected the esports industry so drastically that suddenly it's something we have to cover. And I think the way I look at it is, if you want to have a very narrow definition of esports, it's competitive gaming. It is playing a video game against an opponent with the objective to win. And the esports moniker generally then refers to structured competition. So if you're thinking about the same way there's a difference between pickup basketball and the NBA, there's a big difference between just playing League of Legends on the rank ladder. Maybe that's not esports, but then once you're playing in a tournament, now that's esports. To me, arguing about those definitions is, maybe fun, but not especially useful. The way I think it's more useful to look at it is that competitive, structured competition is one facet of gaming entertainment. So gaming is this really interesting thing where the video game is a thing that you consume, but because gamers have built so much of their lifestyle and their entertainment preferences around gaming itself, we also consume guides and articles and podcasts and esports competitions and speed runs and Twitch and all of these different things around a game. And I don't think it's especially useful to segment those things either from a fan perspective or from a business perspective. It's all content. And, some of that content happens to take place in a stadium where two teams are playing for $1 million. Some of that content happens to see these absurd glitches in Mario 64 that allow me to play the game in 4 minutes. They're all content.
There's one thing that you mentioned in there that to me it almost straddles that initial line that you drew of the competitive gaming in a tournament, and that was speed running. Because while you can just speed run on your own, I feel like it is highly competitive. There's I think there is sort of tournaments. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like a 1 day who can do it the best today, as well as like an all-time leaderboard, and sometimes there's money at stake. And to me, that's kind of like starting to get over there, right? That's
the best example of that is the World of Warcraft Race to World First, which is literally a speed run that takes place over the course of 10 days of gamers playing for 16 hours a day, and they're playing PvE content. They're fighting a dungeon, but they're trying to beat other guilds that are racing to finish that dungeon first. And it has become, over the last 2 years, one of the most compelling esports competitions. But it's literally gaming content designed to be played collaboratively with a group, not for competition. And until 2 years ago, it wasn't even a spectator sport. So, was it an esport when no one was watching it? Now is it an esport because people are watching it? There's a massive
situation.
Yeah. And even if you just get into speedrunning, like one of the most fascinating things to watch is like Super Mario 64 bingo contests, where players they'll spin a wheel and they'll have to get 4 specific stars and get them as quickly as they can, and whoever completes their bingo board first wins. And so you can turn any game into an esport, and that's why I think there's so much gatekeeping. The one that we're dealing with right now, we get a decent bit of flack for covering chess as much as we do.
Really?
Because chess is a board game.
At the flack. That's where
it's not an esport. How can it be an esport? It's a board game.
Well, chess just got, it was like 1.8 million concurrent viewers on Twitch.
Yeah.
It's number 3, right?
Yeah.
Because Twitch.
3.
Well, Twitch.
There's definitely more chess is played digitally than on a board.
But
100%.
But the chess app has changed the game for chess, because previously you could just play chess against a computer or other people, but the chess app will actually give you like training guides, and it'll give you strategy and analyze your previous matches to show you where you messed up. And it is doing more than letting you just play a game. It's training you how to be a better chess player. And I think that's the evolution of what chess was, just a board game, to what it has become because of technology. But it's interesting that people would give you flack that that's an esport, because to your definition, it's literally just a video game, which now it is. It's a digital game for competition, which is prize money, essentially.
Gamers are very adept at gatekeeping. That's one of our greatest skills.
I think people, right?
Yes, definitely. But everybody has a different line. Mobile games aren't esports. Fortnite isn't an esport because there's some RNG to it. Hearthstone isn't an esport because it's a card game. Everybody has a line on what is and isn't.
So many bombs you're dropping on my brain right now.
But no,
in my head, those were esports.
Yeah, of course they are.
It proves your point, which is getting hung up on the definition is not useful. Mm-hmm. And a better way, and which is kind of the way that I've always thought of it. I haven't thought of it so specifically about gaming, competition, prize money, ranking. I've always kind of thought of it as gaming entertainment with money involved and the ecosystem around that. And I've always drawn the analogy of traditional sports and media and video games. If there's a broadcaster for traditional sports, there can be a broadcaster for a video game. If there's advertising for traditional sports, there can be commercials and advertising for video games. If there's merchandise, which is FanFit Gaming, then there can be merchandise for video games. Would you say that is a more encompassing view, or is there a better way to look at it?
Yeah, I think the way I heard it recently that I think is the most useful in the modern era is everything is content. You know, we talk about content creators, and the reason we use that term is because you're making movies or TV or games. Everybody's doing so many different things, and we all consume so many different things that trying to narrow yourself into a niche isn't useful anymore. And I think we need to look at gaming the same way. If you're playing the video game, that's content. If you're watching a strategy guide, that's content. If you're watching a competition, that's content. You're consuming video game related content. Some of it happens to be played for prize money. Some of it happens to be, 4 dudes trying to beat Leffen at Super Smash Brothers. And
I'm going to draw an immediate parallel here to something like the NFL Network, like their own channel. They air football games, and that is a sport. But they also have coverage around the clock of all sorts of football adjacent things. It could be people talking about the games. It can be people doing a catch competition, right? It seems to me like a direct parallel to what you just said.
If the NFL Network ran a hour-long segment where 4 linebackers ranked their favorite cereal, would that be weird for the NFL Network to do, or would 100,000 people be watching it concurrently immediately?
Yes to both.
Yeah, especially if it was in the off season, they would be all over that.
Yeah, yes, that's content. It's all content, and people would be watching that, and they would be tweeting death threats to people that ranked Raisin Bran too high. Like, these are all things that we know.
And then there'd be the Raisin Bran coalition uniting.
So, okay, amazing. Listen, how did you fall into this emerging and entertaining industry? Was it something you had your sights on since you were a kid? Are you a gamer? Did you grow up gaming? Like, what's your background? What's your history here? And before you do that... Sorry, there you go.
I grew up gaming every console from Super Nintendo onward. As a kid, I was only a console player. I played like Roller Coaster Tycoon on the computer. But then in high school and into college, I got really into World of Warcraft and was a hardcore raider all the way through Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. And then that sort of consumed my college years for the most part. I can't tell you a lot of things that happened in World of Warcraft during that time. But after that, and realizing that I needed to step away from World of Warcraft in order to have a life, I found League of Legends, which is a game that you have to decide you're going to keep playing. That's one of the most insidious things about a game like World of Warcraft, is there's no choosing to play another round. There's always, oh, I got this gear, now it needs to be enchanted. Oh, that allows me to go level up my axe skill. Okay, well, if I'm going to level up my axe skill, I might as well do these daily quests. Oh, that gave me enough gold to buy a flying mount, so now I can fly over here. And now it's 4 a.m. And so League of Legends was a much more healthier game where I could say, okay, I don't have 45 more minutes for another game, so let me not queue up. And so I started playing League of Legends.
So angry after playing that game.
Yeah. I don't play it anymore because I want to be happy. But I got really into League of Legends and have just always been somebody that likes to learn. Learning is my favorite thing. It's the reason I love esports and the reason I love learning about new esports is because I love learning. Learning new terminology, learning new languages, learning new strategies, those sorts of things. And learning a new esport is literally like learning a foreign language. When you talk to Dragon Ball FighterZ players about a 246, back super dash, that means nothing to a League of Legends player who can tell you all about the jungle meta.
I'm lost.
Yeah. And there's some Dragon Ball Fighter player who's mad at me because 246 is not proper notation for anything. So I got into League of Legends and started watching videos of TSM because they had the best strategy guides and they were really entertaining. And then it turns out they had a team that was competing in tournaments, and you could watch videos of them playing in tournaments and talking to each other and winning prize money. And it turns out that there's competition and people take it seriously. And so I started watching some League of Legends tournaments, and then I watched the League of Legends Season 1 World Championship, watched Fnatic win a large amount of prize money, everybody cheer, watched some of the most unique gameplay I'd ever seen in the game, and said, okay, I don't care what I have to do, I have to be a part of this.
Cool.
And so I was not ever a talented gamer, so I wanted to be a pro. I didn't have any, business degree or any other way to get into the industry. The only thing I could do was write. So I emailed a bunch of websites and said, hey, if you let me, I will write tournament recaps for you for free. And started doing that and slowly worked my way up into larger and larger positions, blogging and writing and interviewing and those sorts of things until eventually I ended up at the Esports Observer.
Man, I really...
Awesome. You had the passion and you went with it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I really love that. And I admire that. I think that, you had an aha moment where you're like, I'm passionate about this and I want to build my life around this, and you went for it. So kudos, man. Hats off to you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and most people in esports, I think, have a similar story, and that's the biggest advice. Anyone into esports, the best thing that I can say to them is start right now and do something, because everyone else is. Because it's an industry fueled by passion, by people that are like, the only reason esports exists is because people willed it into existence back when there was no money, because everyone had that moment of, oh no, competitive video games are the coolest thing that you could ever experience. There's nothing like watching high-level Super Smash Bros. Melee or StarCraft or one of those, high APM games where literally your fingers will never be able to do the things that these people can do with a controller.
Yeah,
mechanically.
The more we talk about this, the more I think about that esports is like the perfect name for it. I wouldn't have used another word other than sport, because I think about the same things when I'm watching traditional sports, where I'm like, I've played these guys, I've played hockey and football and soccer, but I not do what these guys do. No shit. And I love seeing it. And I feel the same emotions when I'm seeing pros play a game that I've played, and I see them just do the thing, the micro that they can pull off, and the strategies that they bring in that I would have never even thought of. It blows my mind and gets me real hype and excited every time.
And that's 100% the reason that games done quick and speedrunning is as successful as it is, because you remember, Donkey Kong 64 took you 4 summers to beat, and these guys do it in 14 minutes. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's pretty disheartening, but pretty amazing. I love the devs react to speedruns. And the
Yep.
devs are like, I spent 6 months of my life designing that room, and he blew by it in less than a second. It's like you can hear them just dying inside. It's so good. But at the same time, I think devs do love speedrunners. They enjoy them quite a lot. And the other thing I wanted to say was you began your journey into gaming with League and WoW. And we talked about this a little bit on the show notes. I put a pin in it, but I've been sitting on this. I've been dying to hear about this. League of Legends is the world's most popular MOBA. And at one point, the world's most popular video game before I think Fortnite came out. So that's your, stake in the map. Mine is Dota, which was it was the original MOBA. And Pat's is Heroes of the Storm, which is so dead that Blizzard during BlizzCon didn't even talk about it. They pretended it didn't even exist. It wasn't even under their development umbrella.
They blackballed it. It's been blackballed.
Worse than blackballed, it's been no-balled. There was no mention of it.
Oh, no.
And when we brought this up to you at the pre-show notes, you said that you're a diehard HOTS fan. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. What saving grace does HOTS have here? Tell me, what is the deal with you and HOTS?
This is where we get into the fun of definition, because I don't think HOTS is a very good video, but HOTS is one of the greatest esports that has ever been created.
Yeah. I think I've heard this argument before, and I agree. But let's hear it again.
Yeah, so I think... So Heroes of the Storm obviously came way too late to ever succeed as a revenue-generating video game. It was too different to draw League or Dota players into it, and it was too much of a MOBA to draw in people that don't like MOBAs because they made it too much of a team sport. There's no ability.
I disagree, but continue.
So there's no ability to win by yourself in Heroes of the Storm unless you are literally the greatest player who's ever existed. It makes solo queue ranked a true nightmare of an experience. One of the things that League of Legends has done really well, especially in the last 5 years, is design heroes specifically for the way that people chose to play their video game. So early League of Legends, and this is going to get too into the weeds, so pull me out whenever you need to.
No, let's weed it out.
But early League of Legends, you put the AD carry in the mid lane because nobody knew anything about how valuable the blue buff was. And nobody knew that you needed the AD carry down bottom with a support to protect them. You had like roaming supports that didn't have a specific lane, or you had 2 people in top lane and 2 people in bottom. And eventually it wasn't Riot that decided, it was the league, pros and top players that decided you put a bruiser top, you have a jungler, you have a mage in the mid, and then you have 2 players down in the bottom lane with a carry.
And just to press pause.
Trickle down effect from the pros. This generally how it goes.
To press pause.
Figure it out first, and then they bring it to the diamonds, and so
you're describing meta, right? You're describing when you say they decided, they didn't all just sit in a room and like collaborate. Basically, the best of the best said that if you don't play this setup, you're going to lose.
Right.
And
through vigorous testing. Rigorous.
Yeah, tons of testing. And out of that testing arose the meta game, which is there is the game with the rules, but then there's the competitive game with the real finite rules of if you want a chance at winning against somebody who knows and a team who knows what they're doing, you need to play with this setup. And that is, when we say meta, like essentially what that means. Would you agree with that definition, or would you add to it?
Yeah, I think that the best example of the way meta affects a game is like a card game. If you play Magic the Gathering and there are 4 decks that are the top tier decks, you will lose again if you're playing, a 30, if those decks are a 9 and you're playing a 6, you will lose 95 out of 100 games against those 4 decks, right, unless your deck accounts for those decks in some way.
Right.
And in MOBAs, it works very much the same way. If, they figured out that this is the way to play, because it beats all of the other strategies. If you
Right.
put two people in the top lane, you don't have enough resources to then beat the people that are funneling all of their gold into their carry on the other side. So your strategy has to beat that. There are no strategies that beat these established meta in League of Legends, so that's the way that you play League of Legends. And even if you're playing casually with friends over a few beers, if you don't have a bruiser top lane, a jungler, a mage mid, and an AD carry support bottom, you're not going to win a single game unless the other people you're playing against are truly horrific at the game.
So then
Oh, go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, so then the reaction of the developer is to introduce new characters or elements to the game, or patch notes where you nerf, which is handicap certain characters, or buff, enable other characters, which changes the meta strategy of the game so that 95-5 discrepancy of your strategy kind of evens out until those professionals, again, through vigorous testing, come up with a new meta. And that's kind of like the balancing act that you see in MOBA esports, and I would say most esports. Would you agree?
Yes and no. I think there's two different things there, because most of the time when people are talking about the meta in like League of Legends, they're talking which characters are strong right now. So, in League of Legends right now, Olaf is incredibly strong. And so then they're going to nerf him, and that'll change the meta, because right now if Olaf is too strong, you can only play characters that can compete against Olaf. If Olaf is no longer strong, now I can play other things because they may not have been good against Olaf, but they're good against other things. So that's the character meta. But the meta of the actual how you play the macro of the map of the game is a completely different thing. And Riot has done some things to change that, of like changing how the dragon works, changing what the Baron does, adding different things to the map so that you play the map differently. But the one thing that they haven't really tried to change since very early on is bruiser top, jungle, mage mid, support, carry bottom lane. And what they actually did is they started leaning into that and designing characters and heroes for those roles. When a character comes out, it comes out with abilities and numbers that make it a support, or make it a mid lane character, or make it a jungle character. And sometimes you can play them in other roles, but more and more they are specifically designing characters for the roles that the community decided you need to play League of Legends properly.
Okay.
And what Heroes of the Storm didn't do is that.
So I didn't agree with what you were saying about, hey, it started too late to be a revenue-generating game. I fundamentally disagree with you there. I do agree with you on something that I think is a really important point, is that Blizzard did not design Heroes of the Storm to be a game that catered to different play styles. In League, in Dota, in many esports, popular esports, successful esports titles, whether you are a support or a carry or, a tank or a bruiser or whatever you want to call it, that play style kind of exists for you. And with HOTS, the theory was that regardless of your play style, you should all be rewarded and counted the same. But I feel like in practice, it was like communism. It's kind of, it sounds good on paper, but in practice, it doesn't really compute. I don't know if that was like a tirade,
it sounds a
but
lot like personal opinion.
It's 100% personal opinion.
You're entitled to
100% personal opinion. But if you have a specific play style, like how you play a game really needs to matter in game development decision making, I believe. When there's team, PvP, like multiple people on a team versus multiple people on the opposing team. And if you don't take that in consideration, then I think that you end up with a failed experiment, which is, I think, what HOTS is. If it wasn't, then HOTS would be a smashing success, but it's unfortunately not.
Now we're going to set Trent up here for it. We've raked hot over the coals, but we haven't even got to the good part yet of why HOTS is because there's still some ongoing, but HGC is no more.
Yeah.
The most fun, best viewer experience.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I like that question.
Tell us why.
So first thing, no game is dead if people are playing it, is just my philosophy. And HOTS is actually doing fine. It doesn't need BlizzCon announcements. They're off in their corner doing their thing. People love playing it. Wisdom is doing some really cool things with the esports for it. There's every chance that 2 years from now, HOTS is a thriving game because its community is so passionate. It is genuinely an incredible esport to watch, and a lot of people love it. And if they're left alone and Blizzard isn't like futzing with the game, they can do great things with it because there are the bones of a really good game there.
It's a really good point.
And those bones were figured out by the pros. And what the pros figured out is the reasons that the reasons that nobody liked Heroes of the Storm and so many people bounced off of Heroes of the Storm are the reasons that it is such a compelling esport. So yes. The team fighting nature of the game. Every other MOBA has a forever long, incredibly boring phase. From a viewer perspective, you're a liar if you're interested in the laning phase.
I agree with you.
Like literally, unless you are only watching top lane because you're a top laner and you want to learn the matchup, that's the only reason you would care about watching the laning phase. Yep. Maybe there's a jungle gank and there's a tiny spike of interest, but the laning phase is boring. Heroes of the Storm has no laning phase. You are fighting from minute one. There's an objective pulling you to fight every couple of minutes. It is the most action-packed MOBA. You know for a fact. There's never going to be a game of Heroes of the Storm where the teams don't fight each other. Yep. That can happen in League of Legends. That can happen in Dota. It literally cannot happen in Heroes of the Storm the way the game is designed. Yeah. So that makes it a much more compelling esport to watch from an action perspective. Then on the strategy side,
you can get is Juice Pirates. We can touch on that later if you want. But the closest to not fighting each other is a specific.
Yeah, and that's a cheese strategy that's hilarious. That works once. Then if you know it's coming, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
So and those kind of strategies existing make it even more interesting because if you can break the rules, that's really interesting to do once or twice, which is all that Juice Pirates got to be. It didn't define the meta ever.
No.
So, but then on the strategy side, because there's so many different maps, every other MOBA has one map that you play competitively. Right. Even like Infinite Crisis that had 3 maps, 2 of them were terrible and didn't work for competitive, and you had the one that was literally just Summoner's Rift from League of Legends, but with Batman. So Heroes of the Storm has incredibly different maps that are so different that the drafting strategy is so radically different from any other game. There are heroes that only work on specific maps and don't work on other maps. And you have to account for that when you're playing against a team that has a versatile flex player that can play those heroes. Do you ban that map against them? Do you play that map against them, but then ban those heroes? There's so much more depth to the drafting strategy.
I agree.
It really prevents...
Especially in a best of 5 or a best of 7.
Yeah. So for those reasons, I think the team synergy aspects of Heroes of the Storm, there is no MOBA, and I've watched all of them. I do this for a living. I don't, but I've watched enough League of Legends, Dota, and HOTS. I coached in Infinite Crisis. I've played a lot of Smite and written about Smite. Like I know my MOBAs. There is no MOBA that requires more team synergy than Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah.
And so,
but is that why you think it didn't succeed? Because that's
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is such a smart point. I never would have put that connected those dots, but I think you're right. I think the people that are want like the satisfaction people get out of playing a MOBA is that they can just carry an entire team on their shoulders, and you need to kind of reward that, and then also as a result, the skill cap is higher.
Yep.
And I think that separates
from a team perspective. Yeah.
I think that because then you get the highest carry skill caps, you get the highest carry supports, the highest carry mids, and the cream kind of rises to the top, and then the esports that comes out of that is just mechanically kind of pad and Trent, what you guys were talking about earlier, where like the things that these people are able to do, we will never be able to do. They are so good. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying that the people that are like top tier in HOTS are bad gamers. They're obviously phenomenal gamers. I am, however, saying I believe that the skill cap in HOTS is lower than the skill cap in League or Dota.
Yeah,
Probably
100%.
on an individual player basis, but it's a little bit of apples and oranges when you're coming to that team perspective, where that skill cap is a different one. Whereas you can drop, it's a little bit more easy to drop an individually incredibly talented player onto a team and have them have a huge carrying impact onto that team. Whereas like HOTS is more like your offensive line in football. They need to work together as a unit, and that is what gives them success. Far more than one individual player making one individual play.
Okay, but Trent, you had mentioned, I agree, Pat, I agree. Trent, you had mentioned that HOTS showed up too late to be a revenue-generating game. Here's why I disagree.
Oh yeah, this is
okay. I'm passionate.
I agree with Rob already.
I passionately disagree because I am a Blizzard fanboy. I know that they've made mistakes. I know they've messed up, but I love their games and their lore, like their Warcraft, their IP, right? Like Warcraft, Diablo, and StarCraft, and Overwatch, which is like newer. And they were able to just pull on the nostalgia and that love from everybody in all of those universes and bring them together in a MOBA versus what every other game had to do, which is create its own brand in and of itself. And I think because Blizzard has that draw from the lore and the love of their audience and players, they should have just fucking smashed it. And that's why I disagree with why it showed up too late. I think it could have showed it up at any time and it would have been a smash.
I think the problem for me is the MOBA genre. I think it works great for Super Smash Brothers or Mario Party. I don't think it works for MOBAs, and Infinite Crisis is a perfect example. Infinite Crisis was a very good MOBA.
I've never played it.
Made a couple of it was the DC Universe MOBA, so it had Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and it made a couple of bad decisions. The map that they initially released was not a MOBA map, and that was a big mistake. But it's a very good game, and it has. I mean,
is it the same perspective? From
it's literally League of Legends with Batman.
Honestly, that to me, if you were to pitch me this in a boardroom, Trent, and you said, "Listen, we want to make League of Legends, but DC and Marvel or just DC," I'd be like, yeah, this is gonna fucking win.
I mean,
it never made it out of beta. It was a massive failure.
Playing that rope out at least and seeing
show
me some stuff. Yeah.
That is so surprising to me.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have been, because you get to play Batman and Superman in a MOBA, but MOBAs, the IP is not the strength of a MOBA. League of Legends lore is nonsense. They have done a really good job in recent years. They have incredible cinematics, and they've done a really good job in recent years of making it more cohesive. But if you go back and read, the first 100 champions lore, they are literally from different genres. They don't belong in a video game world together. And that's okay, because who cares? It's a MOBA. It's like a fighting game. Like Street Fighter's lore makes no sense.
And especially when you throw in the different skins too. It's like,
listen,
what's even happening here?
Dude, Jean-Claude Van Damme would disagree with that Street Fighter comment.
But yeah, so that's my thought is even a Teamfight Tactics with Blizzard characters. Like the fact that they didn't come out with an actual like team fight tactics for Heroes of the Storm is one of the Hearthstone Battlegrounds is good, but what a missed opportunity to not literally do team fight tactics in Heroes of the Storm.
You already have all the art ready to go.
They could have done exactly the same thing that Riot did.
You just straight copy it, and it really wouldn't even take much time or effort.
They're just like, nah.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing?
And that sort of game, a party game, those are where IP strength matters a lot.
Fair.
But, Dragon Ball FighterZ isn't as successful as it is only because Dragon Ball is one of the biggest IPs on the planet. That sold a number of things, but nobody remembers Budokai games other than how bad they were. Like, you think you enjoyed the Dragon Ball Budokai games, but you didn't. Dragon Ball FighterZ is one of the best fighting games that's ever been made.
It's a legit fighting game.
That's the reason. Yeah, it's a legit, really good, deep, gorgeous looking.
I love the art
game.
style. I was just going to say, I love the art style.
That is why that game sold so well. It helped that there was a really good IP behind it, but Power Rangers is probably a bigger IP in the States. And that game, Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, might as well be an indie title for how well it has sold. And it's because it released with fewer characters. It didn't have the polish that Dragon Ball had. So I think there are genres where IP can outshine.
Okay. If we said that minimum barrier to entry exists, which is game mechanics and polish are there, then IP should give you the upper hand. Would you agree?
It 100% gives you an upper hand.
But obviously,
I think in the MOBA genre especially, it's very hard because MOBAs just don't succeed if they're not like Smite has carved out a nice little niche for itself. But if you're not Dota or League, what other MOBA does is relevant at this point? What MOBA has succeeded?
Literally, the only three I can name are HOTS, League, and Dota. That's it.
And Smite.
Yeah.
And now
Smite's different because the camera angle's in a different spot.
But it's not a typical MOBA, right? Like it's third person.
It is exactly League of Legends, but you're behind your character and you control differently. So it's a very different play experience, but
I've seen people streamers do the 3 wins in each MOBA thing, challenge or whatever, and Smite is always the 4th one that's included in that.
That's awesome.
It's a fun challenge. 3 ranked wins as well. Okay, I feel like we covered the IP side of this discussion, but I think there's one other aspect of this whole thing that you guys have both touched on a little bit, but I want you guys to have it out here. I think Trent is saying that something to do with the genre of MOBAs is fundamentally restricting to the player base switching games. And I think that's is that where Rob's going with that? It's it's too late because all those players have committed to League or Dota and they don't want to leave it. They don't want to play a different game. They want to stay in the hole that they're in. They're not interested in playing 3 different MOBAs due to things like the complexity of your game. And the further you dive into that game, the more you know about it and the better you become at it. And you don't have time for the other ones.
I think it's harder to transition games that the more strategy a game has, the harder it is to jump in, to leave the knowledge that you had in that game. It's harder to leave StarCraft and all the builds that you've mastered through muscle memory and learn a new RTS than it is. Your mouse moves and the gun fires the same in Counter-Strike and Valorant and Rainbow Six. And shooter people will disagree with me, but you're clicking on heads. You click on heads the same way you click on heads in another shooter, and you're going to learn the subtle differences between them, but the core skill translates so well. But in a MOBA,
every skill shot is different.
You have a lot of skill expression, but you actually have a remarkably limited amount of control over your character compared to a fighting game, a shooter, a platformer. any of those sorts
I'm
of
going to
things.
speak for Rob again. And here's Rob's counterpoint. This is great. Hope you take a break, Rob.
Do you want to just do both of our sides and we can go like get a
yeah, it's great. You guys get out of here. I would say something like Valheim, for example. Valheim is, it's a new game. It's bringing lots of new stuff to that space, but it's also not doing. It's not groundbreaking in terms of how is it different from another survival type crafting game, right? It's doing a lot of the same things as that genre. But it wasn't too late to the field. It came in and it's getting, how many copies has it sold? 4
It's also
million?
very different when it's not a competitive game.
True enough.
Like ranked, like the sunk cost of your skill in a game, your rank in a game is very hard. It's hard to stink at a game again.
Yeah.
Like it's very hard to be good at something and then go back to not being good at a thing. And single player games just don't, and even survival games just don't have that to the same degree.
That's right. So we see it in other genres, but there's something to do with the MOBA genre that makes it's just different, right? It's fundamentally different.
And MMOs are pretty similar as well. Like
I was just gonna say
after WoW, how many MMOs still function and how many MMOs get released? I mean, Destiny was super unique, so it was able to carve something out, but it didn't. I don't think it came close to WoW.
Not even close. Not even.
Enjoyed it for a while.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Star Wars: The Old Republic is another. Should have been a slam dunk.
Relying on that
And
IP. Yeah.
And The Old Republic is
They pull
actually
lot
a
of
very
players.
interesting.
That's why it even exists, right? Is because they're pulling
I
IP strength.
Listen, I do think that Ubisoft getting that Star Wars license is fucking game changing for Star Wars fans everywhere. Like Ubisoft will do that justice, in my humble opinion. There have been a lot of times where Star Wars games have come out and it's just been a money grab because they can put out whatever fucking shit they want and people will buy it because it's Star Wars, and they knew it and they did it and they fucked us all over. And I'm not salty, I'm just angry for other reasons.
And we still enjoyed it, but we were upset about it at the same time.
Yeah. So listen, Trent, I want to get off this for a little bit. I think you made a really great point, and we don't have to agree on everything, but I have actually agreed with you on most of the things that you've said. I really have. Like you've lined it out in ways I haven't ever thought about things, and perfect example of why we wanted to have you on. So thank you. Great job.
It's a great perspective.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and I'll anybody that wants to continue the fight on Twitter, I will cross the hill I'll die on.
No.
I'm very comfortable dying on that hill.
It's not a fight. It's a conversation.
Did you watch any of with the college teams playing each other?
Yep. Here's of the Dorm.
Here's of the Dorm. Great name.
Great name. So, Trent, I want to get off MOBAs for a second. I want to get off like that specific topic, and I want to talk more about esports journalism holistically before we get into trivia. And I'm going to obviously pass this off to Pat a little bit as well, because I've been stealing the show with questions. My biggest question coming into this and speaking to you that I was really excited to talk to you about is I have two questions. Number one, what is the most interesting story, in your opinion, in the esports landscape today? And number two, I'll wait until you answer.
So really easy softball questions that we're throwing right now. Great.
Yeah, man.
I've got harder ones for you. Don't worry.
This isn't it. This isn't it. Gotcha journalism, man. I just like you are in this day in, day out, and I'm super interested in what you think the most interesting thing is in esports.
Cloud9 White, I think, is for me, especially with it happening to be Women's History Month, and next week is International Women's Day. The fact that Cloud9 has actually pulled the trigger on, we have a women's Valorant team, but they're not just going to compete in women's tournaments. They're going to actually be a proper sister team to our men's Valorant team. They're going to compete in the men's tournaments. We're going to support them the way that you would support an all-men pro team. This is going to be the best chance that an all-women team has ever had to compete on the same level as an all men's team, because every other, the Team Sirens and Victus Sports of the world were publicity stunts that did not recruit players that were actually top level, high ranked players. These are women who are ranked at the highest level of the Valorant ladder. They're going to have the resources of Cloud9, one of the biggest esports organizations in the world. This is the biggest moment that women's esports has ever had, and this year is going to be so important for the future of women's esports because of the investment that Cloud9 is making.
That's awesome. I love to hear that.
I did not know that was happening. I have a really important follow-up question to that, okay? And this is potentially controversial, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
NBA versus WNBA. I think everybody with two heads on their shoulders would recognize, or one head on their two shoulders, would recognize that there is a physical difference between genetic men and genetic women, and genders are different at different, like men are better at different sports than women, and women are better at different sports than men.
You see this in the Olympics, for example. There's reasons to split things up.
Yeah, there are legitimate reasons in athletic sports to separate the genders.
Does that gender inequality exist with video games like Valorant, in your opinion?
There is no compelling data to suggest that there is. There's no... I have not seen a single study that says that women on average have worse reaction time than men, that have worse finger dexterity than men, are worse at binding hotkeys properly in StarCraft, or there's not at sitting still for 10 hours in a computer chair. There's no
just
skill.
No
yeah, there's no
just
physical skill
problem of I would say marketing towards men instead of women, which as a company you're going to market towards who you think is going to buy. So I get some of that as well of why that has happened, and just gender stereotyping for years and years, and things like what you're talking about here with Cloud9 White is a fantastic step in the right direction.
Yeah, going back to chess for a moment, there's a great video, a YouTube video all about why why are there women's chess tournaments when, obviously there's no skill differential in chess, but for a very long time, all of the best male chess players believed that no women could ever beat the world number one. No woman could ever achieve the title of Grandmaster. And over time, women have broken all of those barriers because it's a strategy game. But for centuries, women weren't allowed to learn to play it, weren't allowed to play against the best players. And over time, as those barriers got broken, it turns out that brains are brains and strategy is strategy. And it doesn't matter, what your chromosomes are, you can do strategy. And so far, there's been no compelling evidence that there's anything about competitive video games that a male build versus a female build will have any compelling difference.
Solid answer.
Music to my ears.
Yeah, love that. So,
speaking the voice of reason, you heard it here first. Pixel Scatters, give us a follow.
Okay, so my next softball question for you is, and then I'm going to pass it off to Pat for a couple of questions before we go into trivia. But what do you think is the future of esports 5 years out and 10 years out? And if I, don't pigeonhole it to esports, but to entertainment gaming, what does it look like for people who think about it, who act in it? What has the industry evolved into? And what have game developers turned into? That's a really vague and nebulous question. There's a lot. There's a lot there, but I just want to get, as a journalist, I want to get what your vision for the future of gaming could turn into. What does that look like through your eyes?
So actually answering the questions that you asked then would take about 4 hours. So instead, what I think the more general question or the more general answer that I think is most useful to anyone listening is gaming is entertainment, and gaming is the same as any other entertainment category. I think for a long time, gaming, there's been TV, film, music, books, entertainment, and video games. And that's how the world has looked at it. There's these things that, there are slasher films, but there's also artistic pieces and think pieces, and, there's art in movies. And people didn't think movies were art for a long time. Now movies can be art. For a long time, books weren't art. Now we think that books are extremely valuable. Video gaming is going to go that way. The Last of Us 2 is one of the most... If The Last of Us 2 came out as a movie, it would have won all the Oscars. It is an extremely compelling story. The fact that you have agency over those characters changes the way that you interact with that story. Video games are art.
Dude,
it's not a debate worth having.
Can I press pause and just comment really quickly on what you just said about Last of Us? That is exactly why I love Twitch, because I don't necessarily like playing Last of Us, but I like watching the story of somebody else who has agency of those characters play Last of Us. Where I can just chill and relax, and I don't have to be good at what's going on and care too much about what's going on, but I can just tune in when I want. So I love that, and I agree 100%. Okay, continue. Sorry.
So I think that is because as soon as that debate ends, it changes everything. Because now, video game awards change. Do we put video games in the Oscars versus, other artistic merit things? Suddenly video games are more accepted by parents, which allows for esports to be more accepted by parents, which allows gamers to start taking gaming seriously younger.
We'll see even better gamers.
Well, I mean, the shortest answer to this question is go to Korea, and that's what we'll be doing, because that's how esports has always been. StarCraft esports started in Korea, came over here.
Good point.
Everything mobile esports started in the East is finally starting to come over here. Korea and cultures that embraced PC gaming as, a culturally acceptable pastime earlier in their development, their esports industries look completely different. The way that their audiences consume esports content is completely different. The business opportunities are completely different. And that's just naturally going to come over here as gaming becomes a more accepted part of our culture. And that's just going to be inevitable, because the generation that's growing up now grew up holding a supercomputer in their hand that could play any video on it.
Nice.
Can I get an amen? No, that was awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, honestly.
Where esports fits into that is going to be very interesting to see, because there's been a lot of debate about, is there an esports bubble, how high there's so much investment money coming in now that people aren't seeing an immediate return for. The esports industry will probably look very different in 5 to 10 years, but there was esports before there was money. There will be esports if all the money goes away tomorrow.
There will still be esports.
There's still here. Look at Heroes of the Storm. All the money went away, and
I'm still here, baby.
There's still
There's
still esports for it. So esports will never go away. It might change. And Heroes of the Storm is going to grow as an esport because the community is so passionate. It's a compelling esport. So things are going to change, but esports is always going to be there. And the money will come back around, even if it does go away for a little while.
And I don't think the eyeballs are going anywhere either. I think that the eyeball, people watching Twitch and esports in general, I don't think those numbers are going down. That doesn't really,
certainly not anytime soon.
I think that there's a lot of things that gaming and as an entertainment platform has done, like you mentioned with Ninja and Drake, and honestly, Epic. With Fortnite, I'm not a Fortnite fan, but the things that they have done, like that concert that they put on in Fortnite where people logged in and they watched it, that is truly transcendent thinking. as far as entertainment as a platform, gaming as an entertainment platform. And I think we'll only start to see that continue to evolve. And the other one is the NFL Nickelodeon crossover.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see this, Trent? And
I saw of it. I saw reactions to it on Twitter.
There are examples of the average the average viewer of an NFL game is 57 years old.
Yep.
57. I think MLB is like 59. And the anecdotal reactions that I was hearing about the Nickelodeon NFL crossover, where they were overlaying, for anybody who doesn't know, the NFL was like playing the game live, but if you were watching it on TV and you turned into this specific channel, they were overlaying, like if somebody got into the touchdown, Nickelodeon slime would like dose the player, and just like everything was a little bit more geared towards children. And the anecdotal reactions from people that I heard about were that they were having conversations about football with their children that they had not had otherwise. And I think that falls into gaming, even though it's not, that AR, that VR, like it still kind of does. I'm going to consider it gaming
adjacent, right?
Gaming adjacent.
It's if we're looking at like having adults who did not grow up with gaming, let's say, they're quite old now, and their children. You're talking about having these adults have their children be. I've got my words mixed up. Having the adults be more okay with their children being into gaming, into esports, this sort of grassroots situation, stuff like this with Nickelodeon, that's gonna help because it's gaming adjacent.
Guys, I'm just going to take a bathroom break. If anybody else needs to, go for it. Otherwise, Patty, you go ahead with your questions,
all right,
man.
We'll give you a softball one first, I think, here. Because that was a big
What is
one.
the meaning of life?
That's right. Well, that's why I took note of your because there was so much emotion packed into that one sound. I loved it. I could feel like the weight of this massive question. And then when you put it as that I would take 4 hours to answer, I was like,
yeah. If you want to come to my TED Talk, we can do that. But
yeah. All right. Okay. What was I gonna? I was gonna ask you about. Okay, you cover a lot of esports. You cover a wide variety here. You're in touch with so many things, right? Big ones, small ones, mediums. I want to know, and you're also in touch with like sort of data on how many people are watching various things and that sort of thing. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are one or some esports out there that people aren't really paying attention to but should be?
There's a couple of different ways to answer that question. One is from the business perspective. The other is from if you want to have your life changed and become obsessed with something new to watch. Right. I've got you.
I'd like to hear
those are two very different answers.
Hit us with the business first.
The first answer to both is fighting games, because the fighting game genre is the most compelling in terms of characters, in terms of storylines. Like if someone actually made a good fighting game documentary, it would be incredible because it is such a unique space. The people are so different. Getting invested into fighting games is one of the best things that I've ever done.
And I would say also, am I wrong in this, but you can fulfill that storyline of an individual player a lot more than in these team games, where it's the person becomes a hero in that community. Basically, if I think about StarCraft, like Cyril was for a whole year, he won everything. He was incredible. Like I wanted to watch all of the games that he played because it was so fun to watch. So you get that, you get a bit of that, and that's in fighting games. They're inherently 1v1, I believe.
But the difference is that after the fighting game tournament, two players will then money match dollars over who has the better, secondary character. and then they'll
All right,
and
that sounds fun.
everyone will be crowding around. Imagine
Yeah.
Cyril playing against the best Koreans, but all of his buddies are behind him, cheering him on, like literally standing 2 feet behind him, smack talking the Korean buddies of the other guy.
Yeah.
That's the fighting games
have them
are
play their off races. Have Cyril play Protoss and like Maru play Zerg or something.
Yeah, fighting games are a wild space. So there's nothing better to really invest yourself in watching and learning some of the lore of some of the epic losers runs that people have had. And from a business perspective, it's the least properly activated from a business perspective. The fighting game community is very anti-corporation, very anti-infrastructure, and a lot of that is the fault of the developers. A lot of the fighting game developers, Nintendo especially, are very famously kind of anti-proper esports structure. So Tekken and Street Fighter are starting to come around to that, but Nintendo especially shut down a tournament in the middle of a pandemic because they were playing Melee on an emulator. So that has held back Super Smash Brothers from being a massive esport. And if somebody can get in the right room with the right people at Nintendo and actually turn that into an esport,
I don't think that'll ever happen with Nintendo and Smash specifically, because there are so many IPs involved with Smash that it becomes just too much of a nightmare. It's like, whereas if you're Street Fighter, Capcom owns that. If you're DC versus Marvel, there's only 2 IP holders there. But if you're Nintendo and you've got Pokemon and you've got developers that are on the Nintendo platform but are independent developers, and you've got other characters that are completely outside of Nintendo that are on the platform, there's an argument to be made legally about why are people watching this and what percentage of people are coming to the game because of this character or IP, and that's why they'll never really do it, in my opinion. But a Mortal Kombat or a Street Fighter absolutely could. Right?
Yeah, and those have already embraced a lot of that. Nintendo is starting to do some like online tournaments and things, but nothing to the degree. There's no prize money for any of it.
I think the business side of it is so murky for them for that reason. That I just, that's just so troublesome.
Which is interesting because, like in Mortal Kombat, you have guest characters from other IPs, and they have no problem running their pro.
See, that's different. I believe that you can have the platform. So, I think Nintendo's just too far into it, where the guest characters are already part of the platform, and it's like, now that you're in here, we're gonna divvy this up. Versus, you've created Mortal Kombat its own brand, you've created Street Fighter its own brand, and now you're gonna bring in a character. So Brawlhalla does this with Ubisoft.
Yep.
They'll go out and they'll be like, okay, Adventure Time, we want to license you to become a character in our game and to buy this skin.
Is that a thing, Rob? You told me to download this game.
It is a thing.
Who can I play as?
You can play as like Jake and Finn
everybody.
And Nemo, literally everybody. Yeah, but there's like a financial piece where you have to buy that skin or that battle pass, and then the license. I don't know, but I'm assuming that you buy that skin and a portion of that purchase goes back to the license holder.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was kind of set up that way versus the way that Smash is. It's just like, there's too many, man. There's just it's too far gone. How do you divvy it up? Who knows? Like, if there's $10 that gets contributed to the Smash Brothers tournament, IP viewership pool, who gets that $10? Who gets what percentage of that $10?
They'd have to create a new contract, or they'd have to go back and look at their initial contracts when they brought in these other IPs.
At the risk,
look at the sort of ratios, because this is a game that you bought, and there was revenue from those purchases, and that was split.
Well, the correct answer is you just do Melee, which Nintendo is in it and is a better esport anyway. And you just build a tournament circuit around Melee, you sell sponsorships, you make millions of dollars everybody goes
I
home
love
happy.
those. The in-person ones, and people bring their controller out and they're unwinding the cord. Like I love that shit. It's just
fair.
aesthetically.
Fair. It's a fair point. I mean, we'll see, right? Like we'll see what happens with it, but
Yeah,
anyway.
it'll never happen with Smash, but hopefully there's a couple of Smash clones now that are really good. Brawlhalla is a perfect example. Brawlhalla is the biggest esport that nobody talks about. They have like $1 million prize pool now, I think. For their global circuit.
Yeah, they're trying to buy people to become players, and I think it's working.
Oh yeah, it's because Brawlhalla it's a free to play that it has more players than anybody thinks. It has a more active esports scene than anybody thinks it does. People do not talk about Brawlhalla enough. Eventually, someone will catch on, but who knows what the actual ceiling on viewership is for it? Because the art style, I think a lot of people will bounce off of the art style of Brawlhalla as a spectator sport.
A couple years ago.
The other answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the other answer to your question, if somebody wants to break their brain, is to go watch Farming Simulator esports.
Oh my god, I watched it.
No.
And it broke me. I was, me and the rest of the chat were like, is this real? Like, is this really happening?
When you watch a pick and ban phase of tractors.
They were like, the announcers would like every 10 minutes, they'd be like, yes, indeed, this is real, and we're loving it. And you're loving it too, because you're still here.
That's unreal, man. I've never heard of that. That's so funny.
I thank you for bringing that up. I totally forgot.
It's amazing.
But,
it really is.
Trent, what's your opinion?
Indescribable.
What's your opinion on Twitch and specifically like the just chatting section of Twitch as well? Like,
it's good.
Twitch is good.
Twitch is wonderful. I'm a big fan of Twitch, and the just chatting is a very useful category that has opened the door for a lot of people to do a lot of different things. I think it's the same thing of like Twitch was originally for gaming, and that's not useful to anybody because again, gaming is, watching someone play a video game is one aspect of our community, but we also like to engage with each other. We create our own inside jokes. We develop communities. Yeah. We do things surrounding video games. So I think it's a very natural evolution for Twitch to include more things that aren't just someone playing a video game.
And what about like Facebook gaming, YouTube gaming, and then the rise and fall of Mixer?
Twitch having been Justin TV, and it's with all of these new tech things in esports and gaming evolve so quickly, and we consume something and memify it so quickly that we kind of forget how natural these evolutions are. People trying different things is always going to be a thing. I think Mixer was a very interesting case because I think they just took the wrong approach with bringing people in. They spent all of their money on Shroud and Ninja, and that's just not how people consume content. I go to Twitch to watch content. I don't go to Ninja.
Shroud,
yeah. I go to Twitch, and if Shroud is on, I watch Shroud. But I watch Twitch when it's time for me to watch Twitch, and I pick something to watch on Twitch. And I think, and YouTube is the same way. I have a very specific thing that I look for on YouTube, and I think that is the challenge for some of these game competitors to Twitch is, okay, why am I opening your platform instead of opening Twitch?
See, now I'm thinking, is there a good example of someone who has, by choice or forcibly, been transitioned from Twitch to, for example, YouTube? And I think Dr. Disrespect fits that bill as a big name that I believe unless he's come back, I think he's just on YouTube.
I think he got banned from Twitch, and we don't really know
he got
why.
banned from Twitch.
I think his viewers just came with it. I think that's a success story.
Definitely not all the viewers.
Which is what Mixer was going for, right?
The bigger success story is Valkyrie. Like the biggest example is Valkyrie, who has become one of the biggest names in content. She's the most watched female streamer, I think, across any platform, and she's on YouTube, and her numbers keep growing. She migrated and was able to grow her following, but YouTube is a completely different beast because you're already on YouTube, and YouTube puts, if I subscribe to Valkyrie for her videos, I'm also going to get notifications when she's live. And
That's a good point.
we've literally done that. I watch Disguised Toast Among Us videos, and it starts recommending me Valkyrie live streams. And my wife and I have watched some Valkyrie live streams because we watch Disguised Toast videos. And so YouTube has a much more natural opportunity for discovery.
But they don't have the same
Devin
monetization. They don't have the same monetization ability, right? Like if you're on YouTube, so Twitch, when you subscribe, you have the ability to like basically donate directly to a content creator.
It's
But
actually very
YouTube,
similar.
does YouTube have that now?
Yeah, YouTube
Yeah.
has all of that now. You have
All
YouTube
there.
memberships.
Throw
Yeah,
money
all
at
of that
your
is there.
YouTube streamer, all you want.
I actually had no idea.
Whatever denomination
Yeah.
and type of money in country you're from, you throw it all in there.
Wow. Good for
Devin
them.
Nash has a really good talk on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, about one of the biggest challenges for content creators is discoverability, and he talks a lot about how like the Twitch does a very poor job of actually making you discoverable. The way you're actually going to learn about a streamer is watching their YouTube videos.
Dude,
because YouTube is a much better
Can you
discovery
send us a
tool.
link to this what you just
I
brought
just
up?
wrote it down.
And maybe
Devin-
we'll add it in the description.
Yeah, I just wrote it
yeah,
down.
And we got to send it to Gobs too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
if anyone wants to learn about the business of Twitch, if you carve out half a day and watch everything on Ash's channel, you will emerge a smarter human when it comes to Twitch. The guy just knows his stuff. And I think that is the issue that like Mixer faced and Facebook faced, is you don't go to Facebook to consume video content. You don't,
Right.
and Mixer didn't have a reason that you were going to Mixer.
They didn't get critical mass. They went and
Yeah.
got
Mixer
games. They
gave a
didn't have-
reason for content creators to go to Mixer, which was
Exactly.
you can't get discovered on Twitch, get discovered on Mixer.
They didn't have enough viewers for everybody to,
They didn't have the audience pull.
and I
It's critical mass. You had to have
saw
all of it at once. Yeah.
I saw a good argument that was like the 30 million that they reportedly paid Ninja, if they had bought 2,000 individual streamers for that money,
Would have been
they
better.
probably would have they would have gotten more hardcore viewers of those people to come over. There would be more content to consume. And then you have a more compelling reason to come. If like all speedrunners are now on Mixer, if I want to watch speedrunning, I go to Mixer. And if Mixer has
That
good
would've been
discoverability tools, now I'm discovering people that play Call of Duty
They should have niched
and all of these other
They
things.
should have niched down way harder and then grown from that versus yeah. I actually agree with that. I haven't really thought too much about it, but I agree with it. It makes a lot of sense. Patty, I think, and Trent, listen, I think we're rolling on to like an hour and a half here. It's been a wild ride. Should we
It's been great. I've been loving
transition
this.
into some trivia? Or Trent, is there anything that you want to talk about before we do that?
Yeah. I thought.
No,
I thought he was
we've
asking
covered a
me.
lot of stuff. No, I this has been great. Don't want to keep everybody here forever, and at some point, I suppose I have to sleep as well. So it's probably good to not get me on another tangent.
Dude, we could talk about this forever, honestly. Like, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it because, like, I know that our editor, Gobs, has to, like, watch this entire thing. And, I don't want to keep him up the entire day.
Yeah.
But, no, this has been great. And we're going to have to have you on again, I think. Like, this is just...
Absolutely, this is a blast.
Man, I just have so many more questions for you that I wish I had infinite amount of time to ask you about, because you've got a really interesting perspective on things. I love the journalistic approach of it's just fact-based with op-ed on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not throwing it, whereas me, I'll give you my opinion without facts. That's just
I'm lucky to. So I sort of fell backward on the side of esports. I don't have a business. If you had told me I was going to be writing about sponsorships and investments, I would have run for the hills, because that was just not me. But I find it fascinating, and because I don't have all of that experience, I have to be very careful, because I know so much. I very well know what I don't know.
Yeah, fair.
And so it allows me to, be really excited to learn things, but also allows me to, a lot of what I talk about is me absorbing, other smart people. I devoured Devin Nash's content, and now I sound a lot smarter about Twitch than I did before I watched all of his videos, because I can take what he said, compile that with all of the numbers data that we look at and all the we've talked to.
Yeah, but that's literally what a journalist does, which is research.
Yeah.
Do you think that Valorant's gonna overcome CS:GO?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think it's happening slowly, but I think Valorant's a sleeping giant, right? I think
it's just gonna keep getting the update cycle is so much more natural because they have heroes. They have heroes to introduce. They have cosmetics to introduce. It's a newer game. Hero abilities are a cool thing. Riot is better than anyone on the planet at developing an esport. Yeah, I think if the only way that Valve doesn't
that's a
succeed.
Tough. Riot is better than anyone on the. What about Valve, man? Valve has. Okay? So you scoff at that.
Is that a real?
That's a real question.
That a real response?
Yeah, because
Valve doesn't do anything.
What are you talking about?
They do the international.
Valve.
And that's it.
No, they did. Well, they've built CS:GO, right?
No, they didn't.
Who built CS:GO? I thought it was Valve.
ESL. ESL in the community. Valve doesn't do any. Ask Slasher how much Valve cares about CS:GO sometime, and watch the man's eyes just well over with sadness.
Really interesting.
Yeah, well, Valve does not actively they don't even run the majors. They give the majors to third parties.
I know that. So, but does Riot also? Do they run their own major?
Riot runs everything.
I didn't know that.
Brought everything in house. They literally built studios in North America and in Berlin. They recently took over production of Korea, even from OGN before OGN shut down. Riot does everything.
I don't know that you could say that Valve doesn't care because they didn't bring it in house. I see the opportunity for both. If I'm Valve, I'm saying that my business is the marketplace, Steam.
Mm-hmm.
That's their revenue, and they will tack on a couple of phenomenal titles to drive. I don't. Why do they even do game development at all? Why don't they just focus on?
They definitely don't need to, but yeah,
I think they do it to drive up their marketplace, right? Like Dota's skins and Team Fortress skins and CS:GO. I mean, I don't understand the CS:GO aftermarket skins, those third-party sites and things.
Yeah, I don't understand it well enough to know what's going on there. But yeah, I think don't care is maybe an unfair characterization. There's definitely people in the CS:GO community that feel Valve doesn't care. Because a developer not being actively involved creates a lot of problems, and this is another entire discussion that we could have. But who bans a player? If a player is caught cheating or has a sexual misconduct scandal or something, whose responsibility is it to punish that player?
Right.
The league.
In every other esport, it's the publisher who runs their league. But because CS:GO is 30 different leagues, the only way that player is banned is if every league agrees, and they don't all have the same code of conduct. They don't all have the same rules. It's the same problem you have in fighting games, where it's very hard to punish a player for something.
So that's and that's what makes sense with Overwatch League,
mm-hmm.
where they made organizations buy into the franchises. Unfortunately, Overwatch is not a spectator game. It's such a hodgepodge, but I think it's the right business model. I think it makes sense where you have to. No, you don't think so?
Esports fans don't like leagues.
Fuck esports fans to a sense. Honestly, here's the thing.
That can end every conversation.
Esports fan.
No. But that's like saying Twitter. It's like saying Twitter doesn't like this. There's a lot of trolls on Twitter. There's a lot of troll esports fans. Have you ever played?
There's a lot
any
of
fucking
there's in the data.
Yeah. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. Opinion, no evidence. Evidence and opinion. I like it.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of compelling that weekly league play, because nobody likes weekly league play. Like, weekly league play sucks. Nobody likes the NBA in its current format. Everyone would rather the NBA be March Madness. That's why March Madness is so successful. Tournaments are more interesting. Yeah, tournaments are better. Tournaments are a better spectator experience 100 out of 100 times. If the NFL could just be 4 tournaments a year, it would triple its viewership.
Right,
Like,
but the NFL wants money.
They want money for everybody. So that's the big difference in esports.
How much is gambling part of that, though? Because NFL, NBA, people are gambling on every game, and
exactly, it is a better business to run a league.
Yeah.
It is a worse spectator experience. And because esports, every esport...
I don't agree that it's a worse spectator experience.
It's 100%.
Generalizing.
I don't agree.
It's 100% a worse. It's 100% a worse spectator experience.
I
There's
disagree.
More
You're always going to find
There's better storylines. It's
those storylines build over a league, don't they?
They don't. No, because every game doesn't matter. You know, the NBA season is a perfect example. People watch the NBA playoffs. There's 100 games.
Okay, so here's where
maybe thinking about football. Football has a lot less games.
Yeah.
It's a little bit closer.
MLB has the most.
To that, MLB has way too many games.
Yeah.
I can only watch an MLB regular season game.
I agree with that.
If I'm hanging out like with my dad, let's say, after we've done a long day of work, or I'm playing my MLB drinking game, which is a fantastic game that I invented.
The strongest data point, I think, is different. The LCS and LEC summer and spring leagues. There's no difference between the two. They have the exact same structure with the exact same teams, but one of them sends you to Worlds. And that's the one everybody watches because that's where the stakes are.
Okay. But that is the same as saying that regular season sends you to playoffs. But you're telling me that regular season is a bad viewership experience. But what I'm saying is a counterpoint to that is that it can be a great viewership experience because over time you're not seeing best of 5, you're seeing like best of 50. So
you're not though in esports.
Yeah, today, but I'm talking about NBA, right? Where over a regular season, you're seeing which teams perform. Statistically, you've got more data points. Therefore,
but data's not the story. The story is when league play gets interesting is when you're on the bubble to qualify for playoffs, which doesn't happen until the end of the season.
Yeah,
that
but
happens day 1 of a tournament.
So what you're saying is you've got home openers, exciting because it's the home opener. Then you've got all of this stuff in between, not so exciting. Then you've got qualifying, and then you've got playoffs. And the stuff in between is like blah.
And playoffs is also a terrible form if you want to actually crown the best team, which is the other thing that gamers like more than traditional sports fans. Traditional sports fans don't actually care who the best NFL team is. They care who won the Super Bowl.
That's right. It's so true.
Almost every year, the team that wins the Super Bowl is not the best team in the league. But the team that wins the League of Legends World Championship is the best team.
But how can you say that? That's an interesting point.
Because they play so many more games. As I think is that really, like it's certainly in football, is you're only going to play one game against one team in each playoff round, and it like if you play 7 games, you'd have one team. The better team is more likely to win. But you play one game, and a lot of things can happen in one game.
Okay. I get that. There's a lot of chance. There's a lot of chance. There's a lot of like misplays that factor into it. But I think that's what the league play is supposed to level out. Is that
it doesn't.
Yeah, interesting. I've never really thought about this. I want to have this conversation offline with one of my buddies who is a diehard NBA fan who will tell me why what you're saying he doesn't agree with or he does. And I'm just going to have to like...
And part of the issue is American sports fans have never encountered anything else because we don't watch tennis, we don't watch golf.
So okay,
Yeah,
I think I might have
golf, all tournaments.
I have a question for you. Golf is different because in the summer there's a tournament every weekend, basically. Let's say you were
to go around the world.
Let's say you were gonna get rid of league, like regular season play, and you're gonna do what esports does now. There's basically just a tournament every month for some of the esports, like Dota, for example. And so if I'm a sports fan that wants to watch Dota on a Thursday night, I can't because I have to watch a rerun, or there's not like a regularly scheduled, and there is that viewership group there that I think you're not serving. So what do you do for that group? Do you create a different, just everyday league, or like what, how do you address that?
They just go watch a Twitch stream. But if you want to monetize that group, then you create
a Twitch
either
stream
an
is
invitational,
but a Twitch stream is different,
academy
right?
league.
A Twitch stream is like me playing, or just an independent broadcaster. It's not exactly the same. You see what I'm saying?
I think that's compelling. Yeah, because it is nice to have every Saturday the LEC when I.
Yeah,
and that's great, but. If I miss a week, I don't care.
You're right. You are right that regular season, MLB, let's use it as like the biggest, or I think cricket is also very bad for this, but MLB for sure, where they're playing just a fuckload amount of games. Like when I go to a baseball game, I do not watch the baseball game. I'm sitting there drinking beers, talking with my buddies, and like I'm looking for a dinger.
That's the Jays game experience.
Yeah. And it's because of what you're talking about, and you're 100% right. But at the same time, I know that there's people that come home, they want the routine, and they like want a Wednesday and Saturday night game, and they don't care if the tournament's on or not. They just care more when the tournament's on, when the playoffs are on.
Yeah, I just CS:GO has such strong, consistent viewership week in and week out for tournaments, and that's the other thing is like for CS:GO there is so weekend because there's a different tournament happening. There's so many different tournaments to watch.
I feel that's a failure of the league, though. I feel like. So here's my contention. There are so many tournaments that it's so I find
it's too many tournaments.
Tournament fatigue.
Too many tournaments.
And so if you have too many tournaments, what tournament matters? Who gives a fuck?
Right. It's true.
Okay? So that's like back to your point, circular logic kind of thing. Versus you have one organization that runs the entire regular season, tournament, playoffs, finals. That becomes more compelling, in my opinion.
Well, that's Dota. The correct way is Dota. You have tournaments that qualify.
But that's Valve.
Points that qualify.
Which you're saying
international.
But that's
they
Valve.
They care about Dota. They don't care about CS:GO.
Okay, so.
But they're also still very hands off with it. The only thing that they actively control is the international.
They're hands off because this is where I was saying that I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think you can recognize I'm a publisher and I'm a marketplace, market maker versus a tournament organizer, and you can outsource that. Like, the NHL aren't the ones necessarily, filming with the cameras. They may outsource that to a media company or something, right? Like, they don't need to do it all. They can just recognize what they bring to the table. I'm sorry I brought this on a tangent. I know Pat's been waiting here to click play forever.
Ready.
Okay, give me go.
Enough of you crazy kids talking about sports.
Trent, do you need a break? Do you need a bathroom break?
No, I'm good. Let's rock these out.
Okay.
It's time for some Pixel Scouters trivia. Ooh, did that work?
That did work.
Oh, nice. Trent, you have chosen
I have
HOTS as your game of choice to be trivia'd. I have opened up a whole bunch of heroes, Wikipedias, Heropedias, and I have all their voice lines, and I'm going to hit you with some section of these. So we don't know which ones I'm even going to pick yet. We don't know.
Should we put anything on the line?
Favorite role?
Should we do a fanfic giveaway on if you get more than 60% of these questions right, 6 out of 10 or more, we'll do a neon light giveaway for your audience.
I feel very bad for all of those people that are not going to win something, but let's do it.
I'll also extend an offer to carry you, prove that you can be carried.
Let's do this.
Here we go. You got your thing ready. You're ready to listen. I don't think this one's too hard. This feels like a softball, and I can give you multiple quotes from them as well. So here we go.
I'm a bad man.
Is that Tychus? Yeah.
Right? Tychus. I thought I'd give you a nice, easy one.
Yeah, that's...
I am a bad man.
All right,
also this. I think this was my next one here.
You rushing me?
He says that a lot as you click him around the map.
Mm-hmm.
One out of one.
I always think that he's talking to a Russian person named Me. Like,
are you Russian
or something? Yeah, and Me's like, yes, I am Russian. My name is Me. This is the kind of things your brain does when you're playing a game for the 1000th time and you've turned off the music and your brain is like, why am I trapped in this cage? What's going on? Okay. All right. Okay. This one, again, I think it's not too difficult, but you never know. We might have to give you two quotes. Here's the first one.
Let's see.
Let's crack some skulls.
Yeah, there's a couple people that could be, but I think I know who it is.
Okay. Do you want another quote, or do you want to fire off your guess?
Guess Muradin, because he has a skullcracker thing. Yeah.
I know the Skullcracker thing.
See, if you pick the ones that were meta in the got you, because I heard their draft lines so much.
Now that could have been Falstad. They have similar voices. They say similar things.
Yeah, but Muradin has an actual ability that's Skullcracker that I think affects stuns, and it was meta. Anyway, hi. I'm a nerd.
Very true. Very true. Okay. All right. Let's crank up the difficulty a little bit. This one doesn't even have words. Here we go.
Okay. There's a couple of different things that could be.
You're starting to sweat a little bit. Feel it. Okay,
let's give me one more.
Nobody better than me.
Okay, so it's a troll.
Now you can pull your World of Warcraft knowledge in too, because same IP.
I know who it is now.
A lot of the same characters.
Yeah, it's definitely a troll. I'm trying to remember the trolls. Zul'jin is the troll in
well done.
Heroes, or Vol'jin. Zul'jin,
well done.
Well done. But I think that if you really needed help, I was going to give you the you want axe? That would have been too easy.
The fact that you narrowed it down, I didn't know who it was, and you said it was a troll. I'm like, oh yeah, I know who this is now. Like, that was a good call out.
Every troll is
you can
Jamaican.
hear the tusks in his
and
nose, right?
Every troll is Jamaican, and it's completely...
Yeah, that too.
We don't criticize Blizzard. Just don't talk.
Yeah.
We don't bring it up. It's not
True.
We just don't comment on it, and we move on.
Okay, all right. I got another one queued up for you. It's an fairly OG hero here. Like, I think they were probably around in the alpha, so shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Here we go.
Threat eliminated.
So the communication, it's 100% a StarCraft hero. If it's an early one, it's probably Sergeant Hammer.
No.
Oh,
Say
no.
Nova? Is it Nova?
It's Nova. Rob knows it.
Hey.
Rob with the phone a friend. I love your process, though. I love it. The narrowing it down, like you knew right away that it was a StarCraft. Now,
yeah, I didn't play that because I have friends and I'm not a stealth.
I have friends. I'm not a monster.
So true.
If you play stealth characters in a MOBA, you're just like, that's just science. I can show you the numbers. We collected a lot of data at these very useful things.
It's awesome.
So I'm gonna hit you with a couple Hammer voice lines just to remind you that she sounds like this.
Kablamo!
She says a lot sillier things than.
But she also sounds like she's behind like a voice comm thingy, and so I thought because she's in the tank, it sounds more muffled. But I guess Nova's
also on the radio, and she'll say things like "ghost reporting" and like "one shot, one kill. But then Hammer's gonna say like,
Absolutely.
or stuff.
Remember
like,
when they put a literal tank as a character? Heroes of the Storm is a very good game.
They did it. They went and did it. The madmen.
They had a lot of good concepts. All right, you only need 2 more out of 10 to get the giveaway. You're at
All right, no pressure.
3 to 4.
No pressure. This one, this actually is ramping up the difficulty here. This,
All right.
this for sure. Okay, here we go.
And Tara Ladoon.
So you can narrow it down, can't you? But
Yeah, it's
how
a
much
Protoss.
can you narrow it down? Rob's squinting at me.
What's his name? What?
I know.
Hold on, I'll give you another one. Maybe this will help.
My life for ire.
Ah, shoot. Artanis?
Close.
It's exactly
Or
what I thought you were
Phoenix.
gonna say.
It's
Oh,
Phoenix, isn't it?
It
Phoenix.
is Phoenix. My personal fave.
It's Pat's favorite guy. Maybe that's why I squinted.
Yeah.
I'm like, you idiot. I know exactly what this is. Because I know.
My brain completely shut down because it decided that Artosis was the name of the character, but
Oh,
Artosis
shit,
is the StarCraft
tasteless and Artosis.
commentator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he
Yeah.
said my life for ire, that's when you know he killed himself as a zealot and came back as a dragoon.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder though if Artanis.
But
says
that's
it, too.
Artanis
He might
100%.
say-
I mean, my
Yeah.
life for ire is a thing.
It's a,
Like
yeah.
that's what the
That's just
Protoss
what they say.
Like they're so
Oh,
excited
see, now,
about their life
Rob would
for
have
ire.
wanted me to. Yeah, yeah. It's true. No, go ahead. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I mean that's their thing is giving their life for ire. Like that's what they're into.
They are so excited about giving their life for ire.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's their
Oh,
jam.
man. I've-
They're literally their base unit is called a zealot, which is like one.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't even look it up.
Yeah.
if you need to
Well,
know
that's
what that word means.
that's why because I'm pretty sure StarCraft and Artanis is the zealot.
Yeah.
Heroes of the Storm character.
Fair.
Phoenix is the dragoon. Heroes of the
Yeah.
Storm character. So the line is anyway.
So if I had played this,
Everyone has stopped
I
listening.
have returned.
then you would have known.
That's more.
Phoenix.
That's
That
definitely
Phoenix.
more Phoenix.
To me, I can hear in his voice that he's inside the dragoon. It's got a different tang to it.
Yeah.
a little-
It's got the echo.
but yeah. So sometimes I like to go into voice chat if I'm gonna play Phoenix and just throw this.
Voice mod on, and I have to talk a little too slow, so I sound like a drunk Phoenix. Like, hey, which one of you poured alcohol in my suit? Is this thing a suit?
That's very fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good time.
That's awesome.
I got. Let's change it up. We got a fun one here. This one's
Okay.
hilarious. I need to find just the right quote to give you. Then
You're 3 for 5 so far. Keep these
you're in
stats up.
there.
Keep these stats up, and you'll get the giveaway.
Trying to think of what franchise we haven't had yet. I'm assuming you're going to throw in
A Diablo, maybe?
like a Diablo or a Lost Vikings.
You don't know me. You don't.
Pat,
know
I just saw
me.
Pat literally click off Lost Vikings.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything because my strategy was decide on it being a Diablo character next because I don't think we've had one yet. But I also don't know the Diablo characters nearly as well.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll give you some extra. If this one's too tough, who knows? We'll see.
All right.
Here we go. We're going to start off with this. Not many words, just a feeling of who this voice is.
Haha, yes.
It's tough.
That helps nobody.
That helps
Okay.
nobody. Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on. How about this one?
My curse upon you.
All right. I'm going to decide that is Diablo Nazib.
Oh,
Nazebo.
nice.
Well done.
Yeah. Because it was either a troll or it's Naziba. And I'm pretty sure there's only one troll.
He sounds very similar to a troll.
Is he
Kind of
not a
special
troll?
Which again, we
He's
don't talk
does he
about
have,
it.
Yeah, he is a troll, right? Because we got this voice line right here.
This troll should have stayed away from the voodoo.
I mean, that's too much information. I would have never given you that quote.
No, because Nazibo's from Diablo, so he's just a dude who's a witch doctor.
He's supposed to be a Nephilim, but so he's just talking to Zul'jin with that quote. Yeah.
It must be.
Got it. So that's a specific Heroes of the Storm quote, not a.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Because most of the Diablo, I don't know Diablo. Like most of the Diablo Heroes of the Storm are just a player class that they gave a name to.
Right.
Like Joanna isn't a Diablo character; she's just a crusader, and they decided her name was Joanna.
Right. And it's not. It's more about heaven versus hell rather than trolls versus goblins.
Yeah.
I was trying to find one of his ones.
D4 as an
cast
MMO is
ability.
going to be unreal. Just throwing that out there.
I'm sorry.
Is that your bold prediction?
I think if they do open world D4, which they're doing, and they do it right, it's gonna just consume a lot of lives. I think it's gonna be so good.
I could definitely see that.
I'm
Path
looking
of
for.
Exile has claimed a lot of lives.
Dude, PoE is so good. Have you? So you're an MMO guy. Have you taken a look at Core Punk at all?
I have not.
Dude, Core Punk is PoE meets Diablo meets World of Warcraft.
Oh goodness.
It's not even in beta right now. I think it's in alpha, but just take a look at the website. It's
That sounds like a thing I should stay far away from.
dude,
I want to keep my marriage.
sign me up and like give me that drug directly into my veins.
That is very dangerous.
I'm so psyched. I really hope they don't fuck it up. I really hope they don't fuck it up. But take a look at the website. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Patty, you ready? Let's go.
Oh yeah, I got quotes for days here.
You're 4 for 6.
I think this should showcase his voice, but not necessarily give away too much.
Honor guides me.
Okay, so it's some dude. Narrowed it down to that. He's a big fan of honor.
Big fan of honor.
I think I know who this is.
He's also a big
probably a World of Warcraft human.
I think I know.
So there's like 2 to 3 options. It's probably Uther.
I wouldn't have guessed Uther personally.
He's a big fan of honor.
You want another quote? I can give you another one here.
Let's go one more.
So generic.
For the silver hand.
Yeah, that's Uther.
Yeah, it's gonna be too much information.
Yeah, because it had to be a WoW, and there's only one of those that is a paladin.
I was thinking it was Anduin.
Oh yeah, and you could have also thought it was.
No,
Varian.
he wasn't
You're
like
just
whining
talking about honor, right? Varian's pretty into honor.
Varian's more into like murdering demons.
Fair enough.
He's real angry about it.
Yo, why is
the other thing that Uther's really into is this.
For the light.
He's super into the light.
He's a big fan of the light.
Yo, is Illidan on HOTS? And if not, why not?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, he absolutely is.
Oh, he is.
He
Okay.
is. He's just not played often because he's
the skill expression character.
What does that mean? Like he's
the one with the mobility. Like if you're going to have like a really skilled HOTS pro, they have a good Illidan.
got it.
There's a newer
too, right?
character now. I would say Zeratul fits that bill, and Orphea. Orphea is very the skill cap is insane. You can be so good with Orphea.
Mobility. It's
the
reason
with mobility, it's nice.
Yeah. The reason League of Legends is a successful video game is because that is my hot take.
Sorry, is because why? Your audio
is because of the spell Flash. The fact that every character can have Flash means that every character has mobility, and it makes it a better video game.
I agree.
Like mobility, like I haven't crystallized it yet into a useful enough thought to be interesting, but mobility is the most important thing in video games.
When I'm picking a hero to play in HOTS, if they don't have mobility, it's a tough sell. It means I become very dependent on my teammates.
Mobility equals options, right? And so that equals skill cap. So if you've got a character with a lot of options to either escape or engage, that gives you a decision-making tree that branches farther than somebody without it. So
and
it makes sense.
It goes beyond MOBAs. Like it's literally like is
you talk about in Valorant, like Jet, for example, very high skill cap because so much mobility. All right. Okay. Anyways, we got
the next right answer, by the way, gets the giveaway.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
You're
here we
5
go.
for
This
7.
It's gonna be fun. Get ready for this one. This one's great. Here we go.
All right, so that's
Just a laugh. We
an
started off
angry
with a
demon
laugh.
guy. There's 2. Let's see if I can get it off of that because it's either Diablo or the
bold.
Butcher.
He's bold. He's a bold man.
It's either Diablo or the Butcher, or you've thrown a curveball at me and it's Deathwing, and I've never heard Deathwing once.
Okay. I can give you another
but
quote,
I'm gonna-
and I can give you another one with no words if you want.
All right, let's do one more with no words.
It's just breathing. Okay, no, not that one. Another
No,
one. Here we go.
no, I think that
That's a good one. That's the one I wanted.
yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Diablo. It's very growly. It's the Butcher, isn't it?
It's the Butcher!
Yeah.
You were
I'll
be right
talking
back.
about the meat. Like, it was that's
Yeah.
literally the only thing you can say, right?
Yep. Yeah. Well, he's the Butcher. It'd be weird if he talked about anything else.
Yeah. So true. Okay. You still have another opportunity here. I think you're 5 for 8, I believe. Rob
Okay.
knows. He's better at keeping track. So we got another one here.
Okay.
I think you can get this one if you think about it. I'm not gonna give you one that's too easy of the voice lines available to me. How about this one right here?
I hate resorting to violence.
Okay. So it's a human lady. So it's like it's a Diablo someone or it's Jaina. I think that's probably all it could be. Is either some Diablo lady or Jaina. But otherwise, it could be like Joanna.
Was that 5 for 8?
I can give you another voice line that doesn't give away too much, just so you hear more of the voice.
I've got a good
Okay.
feeling about this.
Because there's also been new characters that I don't know, and several
I
of
promise
those
you,
are of the
I
lady
explicitly
persuasion.
chose older characters to make sure that that wouldn't happen.
I'm gonna say Jaina. I think it's Jaina.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well done,
It is
sir.
Jaina. I was tactfully avoiding all of the ones that mentioned frozenness or cold. Or
Trent,
Which
you-
must have been
or
difficult.
frost.
You did this
Yeah,
on purpose.
Choices were limited.
You did this on purpose. You got 6 out of 9. I know that's no coincidence.
Incredibly planned and calculated.
Well done, sir. Should we give him one? We gotta give you one more just to wrap it up. See what you can get out of 10.
All right, let's do
Oh,
it.
sure. Yeah. All right. Okay. I think I got one here. That. Here we go. How about this one?
For the wilds.
Tyrande.
Whoa. Good guess. However,
Ah.
Tyrande is really for the wilds too.
I thought it was.
that's a good point.
I thought it was Toronto as well. Actually, who was it?
Yeah. Maybe I.
What
picked
other
Cecilia.
ladies into the wilds?
Lunara is very into the wilds.
Right.
She is
Oh,
a half
Lunara is
deer.
not a thing.
Lara's a weak ass character.
Nobody
for sure.
remembers Lunara.
Fake damage is what they call her too. She gets a lot of stats, but does she get the kills? Not always.
Beautiful.
6 out of 10. He just gets in there under the wire, over the wire, whichever way you want to be.
You
That's the
squeaked
giveaway.
in.
You did it.
We got the giveaway. We'll follow up with how to enter for the giveaway for you, Trent. But 100% your audience has got that. On behalf of Pat, myself, the whole audience at Pixel Scouters, Trent, thank you so much for talking with us today and kind of sharing your wisdom about esports and gaming. Pleasure to have you, man.
Absolutely, this was a blast. I really enjoyed it.